The Hunters and the Hunt. The Hunters are a group of warriors who are dedicated to keeping their regions safe by hunting down beasts, or anything other than beasts if need be, that pose a threat. Hunters are agile fighters armed with a trick weapon, a transforming melee weapon in the right hand, and a firearm in the left. They do not employ shields, but rather take advantage of their mobility in order to avoid attacks. Hunters exist throughout the world and are not exclusive to Yharnam, since a number of characters such as the protagonist and Eileen come from the outside world and are yet still recognized as hunters. However, it is believed that the Hunters started out as a branch of the Healing Church, very much like the choir. This would mean that, at least in Yharnam, Hunters were recruited by either Gearman or the church itself. The city of Yharnam. Yharnam is a towering, labyrinthine Gothic city, home to both the Healing Church and the Blood Ministrations. As no evidence of the existence of a ruling body is provided in the game, one may presume that the Healing Church controls the city, at least indirectly. The church focuses around healing by infusions of blood. Miraculously, blood healing can repair wounds and cure or hinder diseases. Yharnam's whole culture became focused on blood, even to the point of blood-based drinks surpassing alcoholic beverages as the most commonly consumed. Yharnam's populace is apparently viewed as insane or degenerate by the wider world, and the citizens have become extremely distrustful of non-natives as a result. The Red Moon. The Red Moon is a nightmare revealed after slaying Rom, the vacuous spider who had placed a veil over the world to keep the secret of the true nature of the world from its residents. The servants of Amygdala become fully powered, the beasts become more ravenous, and the children of Amygdala are visible at last. In this nightmare, the world reveals the eldritch abominations it has been truly hiding. As a result, everything gets worse, and the character sees the world as they would if they had amassed 40 insight. Unfortunately, by killing Rom, you usher in the Red Moon, which is believed by some to be the coming of Eden. It is not clear that Eden is the moon presence, but he very well could be. The umbilical cords. While this presents a weird part of the story, it is a known fact that 75% of the game's umbilical cords can be found on women or children. During the Red Moon, Iosifka's dialogue suggests that she has become pregnant, and Ariana gets pregnant as well. You also find a cord from defeating Murgo's wet nurse. This suggests that Eden impregnates women on the Red Moon. The criteria of these women who are impregnated has not been determined. It also seems to be that the Great Ones impregnate women to have surrogate children. It is worth noting that one of the 4 umbilical cords is in the abandoned workshop, very near the doll. The Scourge of the Beast. The most common form of the blood sickness appears to be lycanthropy, humans slowly turning into wolves. Those in the early stages of the sickness have lengthened canine teeth and grow more hair. As they progress, their arms and legs lengthen and the spine hunches over and the face begins to elongate. Eventually, they grow fur and their body finishes the change into a scourge beast. Along with the physical transformation comes a mental degradation. At first the victim assumes all people they don't know are hostile and they'll attack on sight. As the alterations progress, the victim becomes more and more savage and hostile, until it can only stand to be around others exactly like it, as regular humans appear to be beasts through their own blood-addled eyes. Sometimes individuals react strangely to the blood, some become unique beasts, and it's rumored that infected clerics of the Healing Church become the largest of the monsters when they succumbed to the madness. As seen in Lawrence, Ludwig, the Vicar Amelia, etc. The blood sickness seems to be endemic to Yharnam, requiring periodic hunts for those very far gone. The Hunters are both respected and feared. They bring down the worst of the beasts, but are at risk of contamination themselves. Old Yharnam, Ashen Blood, and the Powder Kegs. Eventually, Old Yharnam was founded, obviously just Yharnam at the time, but it was brought low by a strange, the text says baffling, illness known as Ashen Blood, which was a worse form of slow/fast poison. The antidote description cites it as being a more severe case, and in the case of ashen blood, the antidotes only provided temporary relief. Eventually, the disease, likely spread due to blood ministrations, took over, and those infected turned into beasts. This is why the beasts in Old Yharnam are poisonous, particularly the red-eyed werewolf near the boss, and why the blood-starved beast is coated with poison. After the fall of Old Yharnam, it was closed up, and Central Yharnam was built, along with the Grand Cathedral. This is perhaps the first instance of hunters as we know them now being formed. The powder kegs were a group of hunters that tried to make explosive weapons, to varying degrees of success. A few prided creations of the powdered kegs are the stake driver, the rifle spear, and the cannon. However, due to differences in designs, they were banned from the workshop, becoming known as workshop heretics. Blood ministration and the Healing Church. Perhaps the most influential of the organizations, the Healing Church was founded in the wake of the choir. There were 3 echelons to the church: black-garbed hunters, white-garbed doctors, and the choir. Though they did not spring from Virgin Worth directly, they were explorers who found the labyrinth in the wake of that place and discovered the same remnants of the truth, and used the research done there already to kick off their own research. However, their form of metamorphosis began with blood ministrations and their research/experiments with the blood. Master Lawrence, the founder of the Healing Church, and one of Master Willem's apprentices believed that in order to transcend humanity they had to research blood healing using old blood. During the times of Virgin Worth, Master Willem taught all of his students to blindfold themselves so that they can look into oneself, and that they needed to line their brain with eyes, in order to see what the Great Ones see and acquire more eldritch knowledge, also known as insight, to further evolve into greater beings. With insight, they were able to see the world for what it is, beyond human comprehension. One of the most important of Willem's teachings is the Virgin Worth adage, "Fear the old blood." For only Willem respects and fears the true nature of the old blood in the beginning. According to the memory shown by the skull in the altar of the Grand Cathedral, Master Lawrence strayed from Master Willem's teachings and their paths eventually diverged. Lawrence chose a different path to use the old blood for his experiments in order to move forward, disregarding the adage, "Fear the old blood." He then founded the Healing Church and spread the teachings of the art of blood ministration. Later on, as blood healing became more common among the citizens of Yharnam, some citizens began transforming into beasts. At this point, Master Lawrence discovered his mistake of using old blood, for when it is mixed with human blood, it transforms subjects into beast. This is where Yharnam's plague of beast started. We can tell that Master Lawrence deeply regrets his decision of using old blood through his notes around the lecture building. These notes also leave clues what one must do to transcend the hunt, which he later found out after realizing his mistakes. Master Willem was right. Evolution without courage will be the ruin of our race. Hunt the Great Ones. Hunt the Great Ones. 3/3 umbilical cords. From the Kirill rune Beast. Beast is one of the early Kirill runes, as well as one of the first to be deemed forbidden. The discovery of blood entailed the discovery of undesirable beasts. The choir, the cosmos, and ebrietas. The leaders of the Healing Church, the choir, differentiate themselves from the rest of the members of the church as they received teachings directly from ebrietas. Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos, is a celestial being who emerged from the depth of the old labyrinth and acted as a source of knowledge to the Healing Church with seemingly no ill will, thus furthering the notion that the Great Ones are sympathetic to humans. Not only did ebrietas grant members of the choir profound knowledge, but she also further convinced them that they could commune with the Great Ones and learn the eldritch truth. They believed they could ascend to the cosmos, or at least make contact with it, and it came in a sudden and unexpected realization that perhaps while their feet were rooted to the ground, the cosmos was not immeasurably far away, but right above their heads. Together with ebrietas, the choir worked tirelessly to understand the Great One's truth. The School of Mensis and the Mensis Ritual. Members of the School of Mensis desperately seek communion with the Great Ones, to the point of near, if not, insanity. Typically found wearing Mensis cages, a follower of the School of Mensis could be distinguished from a normal person from a mile away. But they certainly don't care about other humans' opinions as much as they do the Great Ones. Despite sharing the same goal with the Healing Church, the School of Mensis and the Healing Church do not seem to get along. This is indicated by the corpse of a choir member locked away in the Unseen Village, which happens to be founded and controlled by the School of Mensis. The founder of the School of Mensis, Mikolash, seems to have telepathic powers, being able to plant nightmares and illusions into the minds of his victims. This might indicate the School of Mensis having foul intent if they succeed in communicating with the Great Ones. They may have turned the knowledge and power they obtained onto the people, which would explain the tension between them and the Healing Church. The pertinent umbilical cord for the School of Mensis description reads as follows: after obtaining it from Murgo's wet nurse in the nightmare, every Great One loses its child, and then yearns for a surrogate. This cord granted Mensis audience with Murgo, but resulted in the stillbirth of their brains. When Mikolash and his ilk used this cord to commune with the infant Great One, they discovered that the power was too much and it killed the whole School of Mensis, locking the survivors in the nightmare realm that Mikolash controls and driving them all insane. Whether or not this was intended by Murgo is up for debate. Canehurst, the Vile Bloods, and the Executioners. In Canehurst Castle, Queen Annalise was a ruler over many nobles and dandies, the first vile blood that partook in corrupted blood from virgin worth. Having the ability to extract the essence of hunter's blood, Queen Annalise ordered her followers to hunt down hunters without scruple, and gained notoriety for her insatiable hunger for blood. Annalise consumed the blood offerings brought back by her servants, and eventually became immortal due to her vile predations. A timeless society of vampire-like entities was formed in Canehurst Castle thereafter. It was a place of refinement and sophistication, and the occasional beast that arose from the foul practice was dispatched discreetly as well as gracefully, such as the Canehurst way. Those who served the queen did so out of loyalty, fear, and an unending desire to taste her blood, and settled with various Kirill runes that improved visceral attacks as a cheap substitute, as described in the runes texts. Queen Annalise hoped desperately one day to bear a true heir, and dubbed this the Child of Blood, which she sought to have at all costs. She sent her vile bloods to hunt for her, and all hoped that, with enough blood dregs, she could birth a child of blood. However, the justice-seeking knight commander known as Master Logarius took these practices as an affront, and founded the Executioners, bloodthirsty zealots looking to kill vile bloods at all costs. Eventually they stormed Canehurst Castle, eliminating everyone inside with extreme prejudice. Ironically, the Executioners slew all the maids they could find, who likely had nothing to do with Annalise's malevolence, but could not harm Annalise due to her immortality. Seeing no other option, Master Logarius sent his executioners away and martyred himself in order to prevent Annalise from ever escaping. He stands guard in front of Annalise's tower forever, sealed off with the crown of illusion, so that none could enter again. The Great Ones. The Healing Church has pursued a strange goal for a long time, a goal that has been hidden from all but the highest of rank among them, to summon or harness the power of the Great Ones, beings not of this world, powerful enough to be seen as gods. They were here, in the labyrinth, long ago. They appear to be much closer than you'd think at Virgin Worth. Men were sent into the labyrinth, and an academy was built to understand the strange discoveries inside, generally called the truth. It seems the truth is a terrible thing, slowly breaking the mind of anyone who delves too deeply. Awful things happened at Virgin Worth, and as a result, the church closed off not only the academy, but the entire forest, calling it forbidden. Whether or not the Great Ones are actually gods or just higher levels of beings is inconsequential, the question itself is entirely academic. The important thing is, they exist. They have an influence on the world. They appear to be ageless, but they can be killed. Their powers are strange things, often involving teleportation or energy or things that the human world cannot do. Even perceiving the Great Ones properly requires great amounts of insight, something Master Willem tried to do, at his own cost. The strongest of the Great Ones appears to be the Moon Presence, the creator of the nightmare the hunter is trapped within. Others are Eden, Rom, Murgo's wet nurse, Amygdala, the celestial emissary, the brain of Mensis, and Ebrietas. Eden, one of their number, has transcended even the others, to the point that he no longer has a physical body but instead is just a voice and an influence. He is very powerful and has become sort of timeless, thus potentially making him the most powerful, yet the most indirect, of the Great Ones. He is also the only Great One explicitly referred to as male, with all the others' genders either female or undefined, assuming the Great Ones even have humanly definable genders. Some items' descriptions tell about Great Ones living in the dream and others living in the nightmare, which is the case of Amygdala, whose function is still to be defined, and Murgo's wet nurse. Humans have been able to contact them through the use of phantasm, little invertebrates found in the labyrinth. Interestingly, Murgo's wet nurse and the Moon Presence are themselves never directly identified as Great Ones. Whether this is merely an oversight or an indication that they are indeed a different class of being is unknown. Thumerian civilization. Thumeria was an ancient civilization ruled by Queen Yaharnam. It was populated by Thumerians, an ancient race of people who truly understood the truth of the Great Ones and gained supernatural powers as a result. Queen Yaharnam was a medium for the Great Ones, as cited by an item, saying the choir discovered a medium, though she's the only likely candidate. Eventually the Thumerians retreated into a deep labyrinth, with their holy chalices being the only remnants of their ancient rituals to break the seals. Some chalices, such as the Ailing Loran chalice, led to other lands, and the Is chalice was in particular used in Holy Communion with the Great Ones. Gearman, the first hunter. In time, a man named Gearman would rise to the task of the beast problem. Gearman redesigned common clothing to provide better defense against the beast's claws, and also created the burial blade, a unique weapon capable of transforming during battle to cater to Gearman's need for a short or long weapon. Gearman's work was so admired as well as effective that his burial blade would become the basis for all hunter armament technology, later known as trick weapons. Gearman was also a formidable fighter whose school of thought would become mandatory in any hunter's fighting style when facing the horrors of the hunt. While it doesn't say specifically, there is a heavy implication that Gearman was hired by the Healing Church to work in the workshop due to his role as an inventor, since his workplace is directly beneath the Healing Church's Eden Chapel. Gearman worked in the workshop presumably until his death. He took many apprentices, who all did his duty in his honor, and may well have died long ago. The bone in the workshop graveyard was one of such apprentices, who had mastered the art of quickening, allowing him to move at incredible speeds. Periodically, the doll can be seen mourning at the same grave from which the bone is retrieved, leading some to speculate that this hunter was incredibly powerful and was one of the few to get close to defeating the Moon Presence, making it possible that he was a viable replacement surrogate to take Gearman's place in the dream. The description of the umbilical cord found in the old abandoned workshop states every Great One loses its child, and then yearns for a surrogate. The third umbilical cord precipitated the encounter with the pale moon, which beckoned the hunters and conceived the hunter's dream. According to this umbilical cord we can infer that Gearman became the substitute child of the Moon Presence, or that Gearman was the one who summoned the Moon Presence itself and was then chosen. There are a few ways this could go depending on who summoned the Moon Presence. There just hasn't been enough lore discovered to fit any one claim of the creation of the hunter's dream. For what purpose does the surrogate child exist? Could this mean that they possess some emotions, or is it for an entirely different reason? We may never know for sure. secret dialogue of Gearman that strongly suggests that he is trapped in the hunter's dream for far too long and wants someone to free him. It also seems that he knows Master Willem and Lawrence during times of burgeon worth from this dialogue. Ludwig, first hunter of the church. Ludwig was acknowledged as the first hunter of the healing church. Ludwig fought with heavy weapons that were meant to mortally wound his enemies, an irony since the healing church is normally dedicated to saving lives. Nonetheless, this became a tradition among church hunters, who employed heavy weapons just like Ludwig did. Moreover,